Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jeff Turner, and today I want to talk to you about something that is a little scary, something that's a little vulnerable, but if done right, it can be very magical, and that's sharing your story. Once a year, where I work at the School of Peer Support, we open our doors to intaking new students, and part of the application system that we use is sharing your lived and living experience. This can be done through writing or oral, but we ask the students, the future students, what's your story? For a lot of people, myself included, this is a hard question because what do you share? How much is too much? What if you don't want to relive those stories over and over again? And what do you do if you're the type of person, like myself, who can get on a bit of a ramble? Now, over the years, I've gotten the opportunity to share my story in a number of different places, sometimes on stages, sometimes in classrooms, on podcasts, in job interviews, and occasionally over cups of coffee where maybe I shouldn't have shared my story. It's a question that I get asked a lot. How do you share your story? And today I want to share some tips and some things that I've learned along the way that's helped me tell my story so that hopefully it might help you tell your story in a way that feels safe, clear, and meaningful. A little later, I'll even walk you through a formula that I've created called L.I.S.O, but more on that in a minute. Let's start super simple. What is a story? A story in this case is a moment in time that's been shaped by your lived experience. It's not necessarily your whole life story. It's not every single detail of what happened to you. It's a moment that meant something to you and something that you share that might mean something to someone else. So why does storytelling even matter? Storytelling can be one of the most powerful tools in connection, and it's not just for the person that you're telling the story to, but it can also help yourself as well. But here's the thing. Just because you find yourself in a support situation or you find yourself giving a speech or filling out an application, you owe your story to no one. Your story is yours. How you tell it, when you tell it, why you tell it, it's all your choice. And that's what makes storytelling a superpower. Sometimes sharing helps you heal. Sometimes sharing helps someone else heal. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not share your story. Now that we've covered the basics, I want to share with you something that I have created to help share my story throughout the years. This formula that I have created is called L.I.S.O, L-I-S-O. And before we get started, I just want to say that this is not the way to tell a story. This is just a way to tell a story. This is just something that I have created that's helped me. And hopefully it gives you a starting point, some type of framework for you if you're ever asked to share your story, or you want to fill out an application, or you find yourself facilitating a class. L.I.S.O is an acronym. The L stands for lived experience, the I stands for information, the S stands for strategy, and the O stands for outcome. All right, so let's say I find myself on stage or doing an application. Maybe it's a job interview, or maybe it's in class, or maybe I'm peer supporting someone one-on-one. I find myself in some sort of connection, and where I always start is with the L, with lived experience. This is usually the part that I find is the connector between what someone is sharing or what you're about to share and to your story. It's not a resume, it's not a highlight reel, it's your humanness, it's your realness, and it's the moment that shaped you or shaped the reason why you're telling this story. Now again, you don't have to share the hardest thing you've ever been through. You don't have to go and relive your whole life story. Just zoom in on the moment that is relevant to the situation. And remember to meet yourself where you're at. If something feels too raw, it's okay to speak to it lightly without going into too much depth. When you're formulating your story or before you share, ask yourself a couple simple questions. Why am I sharing this story? What value might it bring? Is it relevant? Oftentimes for me, just one powerful sentence, like when I was struggling with depression or something like that, is way more effective than me going on some sort of monologue as to my lived experience with the situation. Now, I just want to cover something before I move on. If you find yourself in a supporting situation and you don't have the exact lived experience that someone else does, that's okay. You can always connect on the emotions and the feelings, not necessarily the situation. So for example, say someone is sharing a story about how they feel stuck in a relationship. You might not have had a relationship where you've ever felt stuck. You've probably felt something along the lines of being stuck. Speak to those emotions, speak to that lived experience, and speak to those feelings. And remember, always get consent. If you don't get consent, just try to hold space the best you can. If you ever get lost or if you ever get stuck, just try to hold space the best you can. Which brings us now to the I in the L.I.S.O formula, which stands for the information. This is where you're going to help the listener understand what was happening around your lived experience in the moment. Some examples of some things that you might talk about are things like what was or is going on in your life at the time, what that experience made you feel or do, and maybe something like how it shaped the way you see yourself in the world. Again, you're just trying to offer enough for people to connect the dots from your lived experience through the information. You're not defending your experience, you're just showing what it meant to you. Here's some examples. When I felt stuck with XYZ, I started pulling away from people without realizing it. Or, back then I believed I had to handle everything on my own. That led to this feeling and that feeling and me doing this thing and that thing. Honestly, for me personally, I always find that simplicity works. Sometimes when I'm giving a speech or writing a story, there might be something with like a time limit or I have to fill 5 minutes or something. I might add a little bit more information here. Always check in with yourself and always remember that this is your story. You can share as much or as little as you'd like. This now brings us to the S in the L.I.S.O formula, which stands for strategy or strategies. This is where you might talk about the things that help or are currently helping. It can be something like journaling, maybe going to therapy, setting boundaries, or even as simple as just getting out of bed that day. And it's okay if you're still figuring out. This is one of my favorite parts about peer support and having lived and living experience. The situation could still be unfolding. That's okay. You can say that. Use your best judgment, be honest, be clear, share what made the difference or what you're still learning while you're going through the whole thing. The O in L.I.S.O stands for outcome. What does life look like now? This doesn't have to be a dramatic transformation. It can just be a shift in how you see yourself, maybe a new boundary, maybe a new relationship was created, maybe a relationship lost. These are the lessons that you have taken from your lived experience. And these are the things that you're carrying with you. Maybe you're doing better now. Maybe you're still in it. Maybe it's a mix of both. The thing that I always remind myself when it comes to the outcome is how does this relate to the person or the story that I'm telling? And how did this relate to my lived and living experience? I'm now going to share just a brief little small example of what the L.I.S.O formula would look like in action. There's two things I want to say here. One, this is not directly a true story. Don't really know how comfortable I feel sharing my story on YouTube just yet. And two, this is very brief. If you're in an application, giving a speech of some kind, you might want to extend it. But I just want to show you what it could possibly potentially look like. 1, lived experience. I struggled with anxiety and that made it hard for me to leave the house. 2, information. At the time, I didn't know how to talk about it and I really felt alone. 3, strategy. I decided to seek help. I found a really nice therapist and they taught me some grounding techniques. And 4, outcome. Now I still get anxious, but I know how to manage it and I don't isolate like I used to. So there you have it, the L.I.S.O formula. This is my version of how I tell a story. This is just a framework that I have created to make things a little easier, a little clearer, and a little safer for me for when I share my story. But what do you think? Is this something that might help you? Was there something that you've learned with sharing your story that I left out? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, maybe share it with a friend, and if you want to see more like this, subscribe to my channel. I'm Jeff Turner, thank you so much for watching, and remember to take care of yourself however that might look to you. See you in the next video.